I'm Nancy, a 42-year-old part-time housewife. I don't have children, but I think I get along pretty well with my husband, Henry, especially since we started living with his parents at his request. Our relationship has improved even more. I feel like he's becoming much kinder. Perhaps he's a bit guilty for having agreed to the arrangement. It may seem a bit distant for a married couple, but that's one of the things I like about him. But my mother-in-law and then my sister-in-law. Oh, Nancy, you've got a hole in your sock. You should pay more attention to your appearance. While relaxing in the living room on a day off, Mary sharply noticed the hole in my sock and pointed it out. Oh, you're right. I need to throw it away. As I hurriedly took off my sock, Mary laughed. Wearing socks with holes? What kind of upbringing did your parents give you? Or don't you even have money to buy socks? Working hard without even having children? Unaware of my irritated expression, Mary gleefully picked up a department store bag. Anyway, look at this. The new clothes and accessories I bought for my upcoming trip with Jane. Jane is my husband's sister, my sister-in-law. Mary, I always tell you not to spend unnecessarily. I can't go on a trip wearing worn-out clothes. Socks with holes are out of the question. And it's not just any trip. I'm thankful to my late husband who left us a lot of inheritance. Tom was a high-earning, elite businessman, but he passed away from illness not long after retiring. It's true that he left behind a lot of inheritance. Originally, the portion that would have gone to my husband was given to Mary, so her share increased. All my husband received was a small plot of land in the countryside that Tom had bought for fun. Does Mary realize that the reason she can live without any worries is because of my husband's patience for his mother? Nancy, do you think you have the right to criticize other people's shopping, living rent-free as a freeloader? Jane, who's made it a habit to visit her parents' house on weekends, chimed in. Are you worried that Mom's spending will reduce the inheritance? How pitiful. We won't let anyone interfere with how Mom wants to spend her money. Both Mary and Jane are unpleasant. Mary is just intensely sarcastic, but Jane is worse because she's directly hostile. Nancy, isn't this seasoning on the pot roast just terrible? Without being asked, she tastes our dinner and complains. This food is too salty for Mom to eat. What were you thinking? Too salty? I don't think so. I'm not asking for your opinion. If I say it's salty, then it's salty. Then Jane grabbed the plate with the pot roast and headed to the kitchen. Oh! I screamed. Jane had dumped the pot roast in the sink. Not just her portion, but all that was left in the pot. What are you doing? I was saving it for my husband to eat when he gets back from work. If he eats this salty dish, he might get sick too. I threw it away to prevent the family from getting sick. Be thankful. As a freeloader living in this house, the least you could do is cook something decent. Jane's harassing behavior went unnoticed by Mary, who looked away. How awful. It's true we're staying in this house, but there's a good reason for that. You're just trying to save on rent, right? That's called extortion. But don't think you can just take over this house. This is how Jane harasses me, finding any excuse. Throwing away food is routine for her, and she deliberately breaks or accidentally disposes of my belongings. Of course, Mary never says anything. She doesn't utter a word against Jane's terrible actions. Jane always launches her attacks when my husband is not around. She knows it would be troublesome if he were. I've thought about confiding in my husband about Jane's behavior, but I didn't want to upset him, so I kept quiet. Jane is probably insecure. She might be worried that if I were living in this house when wealthy Mary passes away, it could affect her share of the inheritance. I thought these worries were unnecessary and that she would eventually understand, but I was naive. One day, something unbelievable happened. On a day off, while Mary was watching TV and I was vacuuming, the doorbell rang. Coming. We're here with your moving service. I heard a young man's voice through the intercom. Moving service? What are you talking about? We don't have any plans to move. You must be mistaken. As I opened the door to explain, movers suddenly entered and started bringing in boxes of belongings. What's going on? Here to deliver your belongings. Please check the delivery note. Looking at the delivery note, the address was indeed this house. I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw the sender's name. It was Jane. Mary, I hurriedly asked the workers to stop and questioned Mary. What's going on? Is Jane moving in here? Mary, avoiding eye contact with me, answered. Oh, did I forget to mention? Actually, Jane is moving in with us. What? Mary continued. Jane is getting a divorce. She has nowhere to live, so she's moving in here. Her husband is so petty, kicking her out just because she bought some brand new items. From what I know of Jane's husband, my brother-in-law, he's not the type to divorce over just a few brand purchases, which means Jane must have bought an excessive amount, way beyond his tolerance. But that was beside the point. Whether Jane is divorced or kicked out is none of my business, but her moving back into this house is a big problem. Mary, why didn't you tell us? Does my husband know about this? He doesn't. He would have opposed it if I consulted him. Of course he would. What are you planning to do? There's no room in this house for Jane. That's, as Mary was about to say something. Oh, has the delivery arrived already? Then hurry up and bring it in. It's blocking the entrance. Please continue with the work. The one who entered with the movers was Jane. Jane, what is the meaning of this? Neither my husband nor I were informed about your sudden move. Well, it was decided all of the sudden. I've already talked to Mom. As long as the homeowner agrees, it's fine, right? Indeed, Mary owns the house. But it's unthinkable to make such a decision without consulting the cohabitants. Why can't someone born and raised in this house return? You're just a freeloader living here because you married to my brother. Even so, it's troubling to have you come suddenly. We don't have a room. Where do you plan to live? In your bedroom, of course. What? Don't you get it? I'm saying you should leave. There's no reason for you to stay now that the homeowner's daughter is back. You've been shamelessly living here since Dad passed away. Mom doesn't need care yet. I know you're just saying you'll take care of Mom to save your own rent and living expenses. Jane is misunderstanding something. I was about to argue back, but Jane ignored me and turned to Mary. Now that I'm back, you can rest easy about any care you might need, right, Mom? With that, Jane entered our bedroom and started throwing clothes out of the closet. What are you doing? Stop it! She said I need to clear the closet for my stuff. There are plenty of boxes for your clothes. You'll be moving out anyway, and recycling the boxes is eco-friendly. Moving out? Yes. Your freeloading days here are over. I'll be living with Mom now. Freeloaders who don't pay rent need to leave. Jane threw my husband's travel bag at me, the last thing in the closet. Oh, no! Pack your stuff into that bag quickly. Jane mocked me, pointing at me. My anger surged more than the pain from the bag. I understand. I'll discuss with my husband and leave soon. I thought of warning Jane about what's coming, but seeing her triumphant look, I lost all kindness. I'll reveal the truth. Don't regret it later. Regret? No way. Life will be peaceful with Mom once you leave. Ignoring Jane, I left the house and called my husband. Hello, Henry? Let's start with the plan we've been considering. I was determined to show Jane and Mary their place while pretending to comply. 3 months passed. We were enjoying a rare day off in our new high-rise apartment when Henry's phone rang. Hello? Henry? It seemed to be Jane. She was screaming so loudly I could hear her without the speaker. What's this? Mom's debit card is empty. You stole her money while living there. Henry calmly replied, Don't make baseless accusations. We wouldn't do that. Then where's the money? What about Dad's inheritance? Jane was clearly mistaken. Looking at my husband, I could tell he thought the same. Sis is confused. Mom never had that much money. What? The house and the land are valuable, but there are hardly any savings. Mom got the house, I got a small countryside property, and you got the savings. But there must be some money left. A little, yes, but Mom almost spent it all. That's right. Like Jane, who was divorced for excessive spending, Mary also had a spending habit. Even owning property without cash, life is hard. Mary, a lifelong housewife, quickly depleted any savings. That's why we were living with her, monitoring her spending while covering living expenses. Even so, we couldn't stop her from using her debit card. Seems she spent her savings on luxuries. Eventually, money runs out. That's obvious. Lies! Mom said she let you live there for free because you pleaded with her, saying your earnings were low. I don't know what Mom told you, but it's all lies. We paid all the living expenses, like groceries and utilities, while living there. Nancy kept a detailed household ledger. I can show you anytime. Jane probably thought she'd live a comfortable life, moving in with wealthy Mary after her divorce. We no longer need to care for Mom. You took over that role. Wait, what? You said it yourself. We freeloaders aren't needed. So from now on, you'll cover the utility bills and property taxes we used to pay. The property taxes for such a valuable land must be substantial. It'll be interesting to see how Mary, with no savings, manages to pay it annually. We don't have that kind of money. What should we do? Maybe you should sell the house. I took the phone from my husband and spoke directly to Jane. I couldn't resist telling her. Selling it would fetch a good price, right? Then you won't have to worry about property taxes and we'll have cash in hand. But given you and your mother's spending habits, that money might not last long. That's ridiculous. Where would we live then? I smiled, looking at the night view from our high-rise apartment. That's not our concern. Even if you end up in a cramped, poor apartment, we'll still be living luxuriously here, enjoying the cityscape from the top floor. High-rise apartment? What are you talking about? Didn't I tell you? We moved out just like you wanted, and to a brand new high-rise on prime property in Boston, no less. What? After being kicked out by Jane, we lived temporarily in a cramped weekly apartment. Meanwhile, we found and purchased a high-rise apartment far from the family home in Boston. Living away from the family home actually saved us commuting time. Where did you get that money? You did steal Mom's inheritance, didn't you? No, the old countryside house we got from Tom turned out to be quite valuable. That old house in the middle of nowhere? How? Jane sounded puzzled. She never imagined that such a dilapidated house in a remote area could be worth anything. I continued, smiling. Jane, you should watch the news, not just daytime dramas and variety shows. Haven't you heard about the recent infrastructure developments? The land from Tom is part of a new railway project. That's why the land values skyrocketed. We sold it quickly and the timing was perfect. Tom really had foresight. We're truly grateful. Don't joke with me. If it sold for so much, you should give us a share. But during the inheritance proceedings, that land was deemed worthless. You yourself said you didn't want that countryside property, right, Jane? Just because the land's value increased after the settlement, it doesn't mean we need to revisit the division. If you really insist on a share, feel free to take it to court. We'll be ready. Realizing she had no case, Jane fell silent. The one who squandered the inheritance from Tom and didn't plan for future expenses was Mary herself. And it was you who took Mary's words at face value and treated us like freeloaders, eyeing Mary's assets. If you want to blame someone, blame your own short-sightedness. I waited, but Jane had no response. Is that all you wanted? Then I'll be going. I hung up. Then, I'm sorry for the trouble my mom and sister caused. You've been through a lot, my husband said. I smiled and replied, What are you talking about? We knew something like this would happen eventually. We decided to do what we could as long as it was within our means. Being supportive is what marriage is all about, right? I thought that was the end of it, but a month later, Mary called my husband. Henry, can you come back? Jane has left. Mary's voice, after a long time, had lost its vitality. I can't manage on my own. Jane said she was fed up with caring for a broke old woman with no money prospects. But my husband was firm. What are you saying now? After you kicked us out? Please, I'll apologize. Let Jane take responsibility. Nancy and I are done being pushed around. If you can't manage, seek help from the government or someone else, just not us. He then hung up and blocked the family's home number. Mary chose Jane over us. Neither my husband nor I regret cutting ties with her. The same goes for Jane, wherever she might be. Whether they're broke or in debt, it's not our concern. My only wish is for my husband and I to live a peaceful life without the troubles of Mary or Jane. Hanging laundry on the balcony of our high-rise apartment and looking for holes in socks have become my joy.